The new Shudder original is Quicksand, and this movie is really lame and not worth your time and not worth our time to talk about.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is a married couple who's in the process of getting a divorce. They are they're going to this conference for doctors. The wife is going to give a speech, whatever. They're trying to rekindle. No, they're not trying to rekindle. I'm
They're
sorry.
not, yeah.
They're trying to stay apart from one another.
Yeah.
Right? And not rekindle anything. And they end up deciding to go out hiking together anyways. And in an attempt, I was going to say with the rekindling, the husband wants to rekindle things. The wife does not. So he talks her into letting him take her out hiking because it's dangerous to hike alone. This is real. Don't hike alone.
Yeah.
And they get caught in
Quicksand.
Oh my goodness, who would have
Liquid
thought
sand.
from the title. So this is a movie like many other films where people are stuck in a very specific place.
Yeah.
Like the pool, which I really like actually. Open water 2, adrift when they're stuck like right next to the boat. Right? We can talk about there's Cube. There's tons of movies where people are stuck in one single little predicament, and this is like this is a nature horror movie, right? It's a man's fight against quicksand.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna let her tell you why this movie doesn't work.
Well, also what you're saying about like, you know, in a single location, those stories really can be difficult to make work if you do not connect with the characters or the story.
That's it.
In general, and that's why this film doesn't
Yes.
work. We both really did not like the relationship, the two main characters in this. They're dynamic together, both when they're
We agree with their
fighting.
divorce.
We do agree with their divorce, but like whether they're fighting or whether they're like kind of getting along, like they both kind of like suck. The wife more than the husband.
Yes.
We really did not like that character. She
Yes.
was very, very hard to relate to, and she is kind of like the titular character of the two of them.
Because she has tits.
Because she's got tits. So, yeah, it was boring to me because of that. I feel like, you know, it's supposed to be this, like, relationship drama set in, like, you know, a nature environment where it's man versus nature, but it really didn't click. It really didn't click. No. And it's a really quick movie. It was only
Thank
an
God.
hour and 20 minutes or so. Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
So at least it doesn't
Quicksand.
overstay its welcome, but we were not fans of it at all.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest fault of the film is that the characters are super unlikable.
Yeah.
I know that they're supposed to be at odds with one another because they're in the middle of a divorce and that they're not supposed to be getting along and this and that. But
that's not why they're unlikable.
Have chemistry between characters. Like one of my very favorite films of all time, La La Land. When Mia and Sebastian are at odds with one another, right? Like when he makes her dinner when she comes home, maybe like 2/3 of the way through the film, and they have their like first big fight. Yeah. There's still a natural chemistry between them, and you're like, you want them so bad to just make up.
You want them to make up and be together,
like, please.
But you also are like invested in each character separately as well, I feel like. They're both likable in their own ways, so them not working together, it's frustrating. But in this scenario, it's like the husband's kind of likable, the wife's not very likable, but like together, it still doesn't work.
Now, granted, in La La Land, we of course get to see Mia and Sebastian fall in love. Yeah. Right? And then the downfall. To be fair, though, before that, when they meet, they are not fans of one another. Right. And they have opposition to one another up until, of course, they end up falling in love. And there's other movies that I could use as a point of reference as far as, like, they weren't getting along through the movie, and then eventually their chemistry or their just the way that they worked together brought them together, and you were, like, calling it or wanting it. You're like, oh, you guys are good for each other, you know, that kind of stuff. This is not that case, right? You're sitting there the whole time like, I mean, they're humans, right, I want them to live because, like, they're not bad people or anything. You're
Right.
just like, okay, like, I hope you get out of this because you're a human being. But, like, you have to care about the characters. You have to care about fictional characters to care about their plight.
Yes.
And when you don't, you're just kind of just sitting there watching and being like, well, let's just see how this unfolds. You just don't care. You're not invested, right? So we just didn't care. And as far as the way that the quicksand is utilized here in the film as, you know, the antagonist of the film, it's just not interesting enough.
No.
Like, we've seen these types of movies plenty. We've seen these types of movies where people are stuck in these terrible situations. You know, Gerald's Game being a perfect example. A girl is handcuffed to a bed.
Yeah.
And she just has to sit there. But throughout the film, you really, really start to care for her.
Yes.
And the way that the surroundings affect her and are utilized, because you have a very small environment and you have to figure out how to make that environment interesting for 90 minutes.
Right.
Or now, you know, hour and 40, 50, whatever the hell the movie's length is. You really have to, like, take everything around you. And they try, right? They incorporate ants and snakes and stuff like that.
It feels kind of random, and like in Gerald's Game, it's all like everything becomes hyper important.
Yeah.
You know, because like your whole world is shrunk to just this bed and this room and like what is like in her vision, basically. And it's the same thing with this movie where it's like they only have access to a very limited number of things. And it felt random. Like, I mean, sure, like the ants and like there's a snake and stuff, and it's like that's supposed to add tension and, you know, kind of increase like the stress levels. And I just sort of felt like, okay, like it's sort of, it's obvious and just kind of not interesting.
Sure.
Like it just wasn't used the way it could have been.
It also reminds me, there's so many movies like this, like Fall, which we saw last year.
Sure, yeah. It's like I said, I think it's a hard subgenre to get right. And when it's done right, like with something with Gerald's Game, you know, or even Misery,
or The Platform,
which I mean, obviously Stephen King, and I haven't seen The Platform, but like when it's done right, it's super effective. It's really cool. I think it's a great like exercise for directors to, you know, show what they can do with a limited space and like how creative you can get. And it's just, I don't know, maybe some people will like this, but we just don't. We don't like it. We don't recommend it. And that's kind of it.
I'm just like sitting in my head thinking of like all these different titles of movies where people are literally like just stuck in one space, one little space where they can't move.
Saw.
Sure, of course, Saw is like the obvious one. Landmine Goes Click. All these kinds of movies where I've seen so many things, and it's like, you know, in Saw 2 or even Saw 1, right, with Dr. Gordon and Adam, they're back and forth. Like, they don't like each other.
Right.
They're really at odds with one another. But you end up really liking them and wanting, even though they're lying to each other, and you find out Dr. Gordon is, like, trying to have an affair on his wife, and he's like, I didn't cheat on her. It's like, you still met a friggin' hooker in a hotel room, bro. Right. It's not good.
But you become so invested in their characters, and like obviously that's, you know, different, and then there's more of a mystery versus this. But that's beside the point. It's the characters that we're mainly focused on.
What would have worked here to better this film? Not only the quicksand being utilized better and more effectively in a way where you were like feeling the tension, but you could have ramped up the tension even more by making the characters more likable. We addressed that, but how you do that is you could have had either flashback scenes, right, where you see how their relationship was before and why they broke up, because that's something in this movie that just is never addressed, of like why they're at odds with one another. Their marriage isn't really put on.
It
barely
sort of is, but it's like such a vague, like basic kind of explanation.
Everybody who watches this movie is, unless they've never seen a movie in their entire life, knows exactly what this movie is going to be. Yeah. This is going to be one of those impossible situations that two unlikely people are put into. And through it, they're going to find each other again.
Right.
This is, of course, the setup for the film. This is why they're in a divorce. We get it. Like, we all know that's where this film is heading. And it's just, we need to know more context about who they are, why they came together, why we should care that they get back together, all those things. And none of that stuff exists in this film. And that is, like, that's number one. Now, number two, so you have the two aspects of the film. You have the characters being likable, and then the situation itself being interesting.
Yeah.
And this doesn't work, and this doesn't work. So if one had worked, if there were really likable characters and this was kind of lame, I would have been like, I really like the characters, and but their situation just wasn't all that interesting. Or vice versa. Oh man, like everything going on around them was great and like super inventive and smart and cool and whatever. But man, the characters are super unlikable. No. It's both. It's both. Both don't work. And in a film like this, it's literally the only two things you've got. And when both don't work, then it's completely a waste of your time.
Yeah.
And I was like on my phone in the last like 20 minutes or so. That's when I know that I'm done. Yeah. I'm just like, God damn it. Like, let's get this over with.
Yeah.
So that's that. You got anything more to say?
Nope.
All right, moving on.
Bye.
Bye.